Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
The owners of the Delachey's Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachey, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachey, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, New Orleans, and happy Election Day to everyone out there, and welcome to Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander. Hey, I have one goal tonight and one goal only, and that is for the next hour to take your mind off of the election. Hey, whether you vote for Trump or whether you vote for Hillary or maybe even an independent candidate, here's one thing. I know one thing we all have in common for the most part. We love the New Orleans Saints, and it was another big weekend of football here in New Orleans. Some good and some not so good. Hey, let's start with the good. Hey, yesterday, the Saints and 49ers. Hey, the Saints came into this game winning 3 of their last 4 after that 0-3 start, and they left, well, winning 4 of their last 5. They won the game 41-23 behind Drew Brees' flawless passing, and most importantly for Saints fans, I believe it was a redemption game for running back Mark Ingram. He had 175 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns after he was benched early in the game against Seattle after he had that fumble return for a touchdown. Hey, he looked great in this game, and hopefully that will continue. The running game, by the way, they had the most rushing yards since 1990. Great performance by the Saints. Now for the not so good. Hey, you know what? LSU head coach Ed Orgeron had his team fired up. They ran into the stadium thinking that they were going to beat the Crimson Tide for the first time in 6 tries. Well, guess what? The defense? Well, they certainly got the memo. There's been 1,000 college football games, give or take a few, played this year, and only one has been 0-0 going into the fourth quarter after 3 quarters of play. Hey, but I got to tell you, fourth quarter, Alabama dominated. But hey, you remember back the last game LSU played against the Ole Miss Rebels? Yeah, you remember that one. Leonard Fournette ran wild for a Tiger record, 284 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns over 50 yards. He was fantastic. This game against Alabama, not so much. The last couple of years he had been bottled up, and Alabama did it for the 3rd straight time. They completely shut the former Heisman candidate out. We're going to talk a lot more about this. Instead of having superstar players and current former athletes, I got a couple of guys that were athletes in their own right, but now they're in the media, and we are not going to rush through this show. We're going to break down the Saints and LSU a bunch. I have Lyons Yellin from WLAE-TV. I also have Rick Gaille from SportsNola.com. Both these guys played, and Rick was a coach for a long, long time. But as far as this goes, I can't wait. We have other things to talk about. Hey, Tulane fans, well, you look good early in this game. Hey, you remember, if you watched the game, Tulane led for about 35% of the game. Kind of hard to believe when you see the final score, but it was 6-0. They had things going on. And then the rest of the game happened. Yep, they ended up losing this one 37-6. Glenn Coulier, the quarterback, he had a tough outing. 5 turnovers in this game, including 2 pick sixes. Hopefully they'll get it turned around, but this is head coach Willie Fritz and the Green Waves' fourth straight loss after that 3-2 start. Maybe some good news on the horizon. Tulane basketball. It starts this Friday at home. Well, guess what? You got the North Carolina Tar Heels, perennial powerhouse, coming in to Fogelman Arena at Devlin Fieldhouse. It should be an interesting one, to say the least. It's Mike Dunleavy's debut. You saw him in the picture there. I'm looking forward to following it on the radio because I've got to be out of town. I'm looking forward to that. If you can get down to the arena, get over there. They also have a couple other games to start the season, pretty tough. Oklahoma, the Sooners, as well as Arizona State will both be playing against the Green Wave. Hey, up in Baton Rouge, Ben Simmons, he's gone. He's at the NBA. He was the number 1 pick in the draft, but fellow McDonald's All-American from his year, Antonio Blakeney, well, his era is about to get underway. And I'm going to say this, he wasn't great last year, but I think with the Ben Simmons, albatross off his back, I think look forward to him having a 20-point per game season. And he has been picked third-team All-American, believe it or not, by 2 different sources that I respect and trust. Hey, it's not it. UNO, by the way, they also play this Friday. They have a tough, they go on the road against Alabama on Friday. They follow that up with at Oklahoma State and then at USC. My man Mark Schlesinger does not back away from tough competition early in the season. I'll be looking forward to basketball season, and in the next couple of months, we're going to get really deep into that. Speaking of basketball, well, the Pelicans, they were 0-6 going into last night. They went on the road to play the Golden State Warriors after a couple overtime losses. Well, Anthony Davis did his part as usual. He had 33 points. He was on fire. But there's another guy in this game that was just a little hotter. Steph Curry, who on Friday night was 0 for 10, breaking a 157-game three-point shooting streak. He missed all 10 of his attempts on Friday night against the Lakers in a loss. Well, they had all weekend to stew about it, and boy, did they come back. The Pels played them tough. They were up 73-72 late in the third, just like they were when the Warriors came in the previous weekend. But like that game, they fell at the end by 10. But here's the story of the game. Steph Curry, 13 of 17 from three-point line. I happened to be at a game in 1996 producing when Dennis Scott had the then record 11 three-pointers against the Atlanta Hawks down in Orlando. That was broken by Kobe Bryant, Curry, and believe it or not, Donyell Marshall. They all hit 12. And for the first time in the illustrious long career of Steph Curry and the history of the NBA, 13 threes, and it happened to be against your New Orleans Pelicans. Hey, we've got a lot to talk about. Like I said, I have Lyons Yellin from WLAE-TV. He's a frequent guest of the show. He's the guy that's been here more than anybody else for sure. I've never had anybody more than twice other than him. And then for the second time since I started back in February, Rick Gaille. Everybody has always told me when I had him on my radio show and on this TV, when I had him on back in the spring, they always say, hey, get Rick Gaille back. So he's back. We're going to talk and break down the Saints and the Tigers and everything else in local sports, including on the high school level. We're going to break down the playoffs with Rick as well. So stay tuned. You're watching Primetime Sports. We'll be right back. Good evening, New Orleans, and once again, welcome back to the show. And I can't thank E.T. Ephraim E.T. Towns from the Dirty Dozen Brass Band that's dropped by for the last 3 weeks to give us some tunes. Hey, coming up in the next few weeks, I'm going to have Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation, and also Charlie Wooten from a bunch of bands around town, formerly of the Royal Southern Brotherhood with the Neville Brothers. He's going to be coming in. So we're going to continue to do the music theme as well, but this tonight is all sports. A lot of times I'll have 3 guests. A lot of times I'll have 4 guests. I even have had 5 to squeeze in an hour. But for the first time since I started last February, I've kept it to 2. And that's because I want to get into it. It's midseason for the NFL and the Saints. And we're going towards the end of the season. 3/4 of the college football season is over. We're going to get heavy into the Saints. We're going to get heavy in the NFL in whole, as well as LSU for sure, especially this LSU-Bama tilt this past weekend. But I'm also going to talk high school football. The playoffs, as you probably know, start this weekend. There's some old standbys that are always there, and there's a few new teams that aren't used to this postseason, and that's going to be fun to talk about. Also, we have to get into the Pels. You heard about Steph Curry's 13 threes, an NBA record, phenomenal performance. But more importantly, for us down here, we have to talk about the 0-7 start. We're going to get into that. But first things first, we're going to talk Saints and we're going to talk LSU right off the bat with my man Lyons, Yellin. He's been here before. He's from WLAE-TV. He used to be with the Times-Picayune and the Tuscaloosa News. But 2 years ago, he made the leap over to television. He has done a phenomenal job over there with Doug Mouton and Leslie Spoon at WWL. Here he is. What's up, my brother?
Thank you, my man. I ditched the tie today. I knew we were going to be getting into it a little bit longer. So, and then I grew the chin lettuce and some solidarity with you.
Yeah, some solidarity.
Yeah,
I got my thing all trimmed down. I got my hair cut, and I wore the tie for you because you always wear the tie. I haven't worn one since my very first show, and it's election day. So I think this is I got to look as presidential as I can possibly
you're looking quite sharp, but I didn't want to have to sweat it today. All these topics, so yeah, a little more casual.
We're going to get into LSU, Alabama, because that was an amazing game, particularly the first 3 quarters. But first off, I like to start with good news. And the Saints, after that 0-3 start, have won 4 of their last 5. Where are you with this?
I tell you what, I was down on this team, 0-3 start. You start looking at the schedule with Denver, Seattle, Carolina.
Carolina twice,
absolutely.
Right.
And it was daunting to think about what they had after the bye week. And you got to give this team a lot of credit for the way they've been able to bounce back, going 4-5 after that 0-3 start. And look, they're in the thick of things. I mean, the NFC South isn't that special of a division this year. Of course, it does have the 2 top offenses in the NFL.
Yeah, 1 and 2, right? Saints and Falcons,
1 and 2. They're separated by 3 yards per game. So this one, it could be one of those years where it's a race to the middle. We'll have to see how that plays out with Atlanta. Of course, the Saints will need to get one back. The Saints will need to
yeah, they have to get the one at the end of the season.
Right.
But they've done it before. Last year, the Falcons started 5-0, and then they fell off. They look a little more competitive this season than me. I thought they were frauds last year. I'm believing them in a little more. But hey, listen, I remember when the Saints, I think, were 1-3, and I talked to T-Bob Bear at the LSU Ole Miss game, and I was like, LSU was. I mean, the Saints were about to play Kansas City the next day, the game you were at up there in Arrowhead, and I said, listen, I don't expect them to win both, but if they can split these, I really feel good about the rest of the way. I really did, and he was like, they better get Kansas City because there's no way they're going to beat Seattle. And I said, I don't know, man. I feel like Kansas City might be the tougher game. And sure enough, it played out that way.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I didn't think the Saints had a shot against Seattle. And they came out and played really well. You got to credit Sean Payton. He's really stuck with his game plans over the last few weeks and really run the ball well. You saw Tim Hightower have 100 yards. And then this past week, Mark Ingram showing so much resiliency to bounce back. 158 yards,
175
averaging
from
over
scrimmage.
Yeah, averaging over 10 yards per carry, and then Hightower chips in with 87. They rush for 248 as a team. I mean, really a strong performance. Now, granted, San Francisco has one of the worst rush defenses.
But they took advantage of it.
But they took advantage of it, and that's what you need to do.
Almost 250 yards. We talked about this, the biggest rushing performance of any game that Sean Payton's been the head coach. The most for a Saints team since 1990, 26 years ago. But I want your thoughts real quick because you went to Alabama, there's no mistake. I mean, I know you love LSU as well. But your guy, Mark Ingram, a Bama Crimson Tide guy, after Hightower looked really sharp on the first 2 drives, and including a touchdown that he slithered over the end zone, I was thinking, is Ingram going to even get in this game? Because at first, I had him in fantasy.
Right.
I was praying he would, and he came
on
off big.
But
what were your thoughts?
I was impressed. Look, I have a lot of respect for Mark Ingram and the way he handled this whole situation. I think that you want to hold him up as that's the way to do it. He spoke to the media. He didn't shy away. He didn't cower from all the negative press he was getting, and rightfully so. He stood up and he was a man about it, and you got to credit the way he bounced back. He stuck with it. He knew what he had to do. He held on to the football, and he did the things that got him to where he is today. And so that was impressive. His teammates rallied around him, and he got a shot at redemption, and he took it.
You see that second touchdown right there at the sideline when he took it 75 yards. I fully expected him to get knocked out of bounds around the 30, 25, or 20. And he had that extra
He ran away from people.
I was like, you don't run away from cornerbacks as a bulldog running back. Did you even did
No,
that surprise you?
I mean that did surprise me.
Yeah.
He really showed that extra burst right there.
Right.
And that was impressive. You don't expect that out of him. You expect him to, like you said, to power guys over and to watch him pull away. You could tell like nobody was catching him. This meant something.
Well, they even tried that one thing, like the last two teams have been successful on trying to strip him that one time.
Right.
Hold him up, and they were trying to do it, but he held on, and that's the key for Sean Payton. You don't fumble, or you're going to be out for the rest of the game.
What's so odd about it is Mark Ingram had a reputation for never fumbling. I think he fumbled only once in college. It was in the Iron Bowl going into the half, which ended up costing them that game.
That was the first touchdown right there.
Yeah, and then he's had some fumble issues. He had some ball security issues as of late, but he did a good job of holding on. And those teams were coming after him.
Drew Brees has been amazing. All the talk a couple years ago about his arm strength, and we both knew he had the rotator cuff. Obviously, he had the oblique issue the year before that. But the stat on Sunday that really struck me, I mean, the Saints were 11 for 17 from third down. I believe they're in the top of the league on third down conversions. But when they passed the ball on third down, which is 14 times, they completed 10 of those for first downs to 10 different receivers. I've never seen this before in the NFL.
No.
The way they spread the wealth.
It's fantastic, and it's what you want out of an offense. He's thrown touchdowns to 9 different receivers, and really, for my money, this is the best wide receiving core in the NFL.
Right.
They're young, but, man, they play well beyond their years. And Michael Thomas's emergence over the last few weeks has been impressive. 5 touchdowns now. And what's even more impressive is he's catching 75% of the balls thrown his way. He's got 47 receptions.
Right. That's crazy.
But that's amazing. Brandon Cooks is at 66%. But Michael Thomas is at 75. That is an unbelievable stat in the NFL.
You say young? The oldest dude's 24.
Right.
They're 24, 23, and 22. That's young.
Right.
And Drew Brees has got them in sync. But here's the thing. I was on a Sirius XM radio show, which I'm on every couple of weeks, before the season, and they asked me about Michael Thomas. And I'm like, I really think the 3 receivers have a chance to get 1,000. I mean, that.
Oh, yeah.
But I even said, I went one step further on Thomas, because you and I were at training camp, and we saw the work ethic. We saw, the different intangibles that he brought. And I said, you know what? It wouldn't shock me. It's not like the Saints have a huge history of great receivers like a Jerry Rice or guys like that. But they've had some good ones in the past. They've had Marcus Colston. They've had Joe Horn. They've had Eric Martin, Daniel Brown.
Right.
I said, I think this kid has a chance to be the best of all of them of all time. And by the way, they already had a guy named Cooks who was a first-rounder. He's only a second. And it's early, but there's a shot line.
Absolutely. And it certainly helps to have Drew Brees throwing them the football. But yeah, just the way he runs his routes, the way he gets out of a break, you see how much Drew Brees trusts him now. The back shoulder throws, and man, this kid has some paws on him. I mean, when a ball is anywhere near him, he's going to catch it, and that's to me what's the most impressive.
How about
thing
this
about
catch
him.
though? I mean, the catch.
Unbelievable.
This was like one of the best catches I've ever seen for a Saint receiver.
The concentration
Right.
that takes to do that under pressure.
Look at the close. He doesn't have the ball yet.
No.
He just pulled it over the guy's helmet and scored it right there.
The guy is so mature, and he's got such confidence now, and that's really the jump I think he's taken over the last few weeks. Is now he's not just this rookie trying to find his place. He knows his role in this team, and he's got the confidence now to back it up.
Lions, we talked a lot in the preseason about the offensive line, and they were getting just plastered by the media, plastered by the fans, and rightfully so. They had a couple preseason games where it was just ugly. But I just kept saying, hold on, it can't be this bad. And boy, I didn't think it would turn around. I'm not saying that they're going to remind anybody of the '85 Bears or some of these great Miami Dolphin or Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lines in the '70s, but they have played pretty good patchwork football. They've had a lot of injuries, and they still seem to protect Drew Brees in their opening running lanes for the running backs.
Absolutely. The offensive line has been the key for the Saints and them bouncing back this season.
No
I'm going to look
question.
right into the camera and say this. Jari Evans and Andrus Peat are playing great football right now. Those two guys, I've commented on
Pete's
them in
not
the
a
past.
bust.
Pete is not a bust. That
All
guy,
right.
he has been absolutely mauling dudes lately, and he's at home now at left guard. He is a guard in the NFL. I think that's obvious. He's played well at tackle when he's had his opportunities, but But you can really see with Zach Strief and Jari Evans continuing to play next to each other, and then Armstead and Pete on the left side of that line with Unger in the middle, they've done a great job of protecting Drew Brees. They're finally starting to develop some confidence. And Andrews Pete, I haven't seen a smile like that on his face all season. I asked him in the locker room after the game, after the Seattle game, I went up to him and I said, man, I saw you absolutely pancake a couple guys.
Oh, one dude was just flat on his back.
And his face lit up. It was like, yeah, and he's finally enjoying himself. And he's faced a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, but
he was
now
the saddest looking human being at camp. I mean, when he came out to do the interview, they do, obviously, at the press conference and media. I mean, it was like, I felt terrible for him. Like, he was like, I can't wait to get this over with. He was talking so low. It was a whisper. I'm like, what is he saying?
Right.
But yeah, it's nice to see a little bit of vindication on his part. And by the way, the guy that many fans wanted them to pick, Devontae Parker, has been lost in the Miami Dolphin offense. He doesn't even seem like, I'm not saying he won't be good, but I think the Saints did pretty well with Michael Thomas as far as instead of Devontae Parker.
Absolutely. I mean, as of right now, you got to say that the picks are working out. And really, I think the fact that the Saints now have 6 offensive linemen, 7 offensive linemen that they're using, we saw how that Oakland used that against Denver this past week on Sunday Night Football. They were using 6 offensive linemen quite often, and I think that'll be a part of the Saints' game plan this week when they face Denver. That's really the only way to stop that pass rush. We've seen Tim Lelito line up at that tackle eligible, and I think we'll see a lot of that this week. Oakland was able to run the ball successfully against Denver, kind of thwart that pass rush a little bit, slow it down, give Carr time to pass. And I think that'll be a similar recipe. And the Saints have been doing that a lot this year already. So it's paying dividends that they've had 7 offensive linemen that have been playing all season long. I think that'll be to the Saints' advantage this coming
Before we
weekend.
get to the LSU-Alabama game, I want to talk real quick about the Saints' defense. Listen, they're a work in progress as well, like the offensive line. And they've had their injuries. I mean, listen, there's no mistaking it. But for what they put out on the field, it's not the guys maybe that we in the media expected, like the Stupars and obviously the Craig Robertsons and people like that. But they're starting to come around and gel.
Absolutely. What a great job the Saints did signing those linebackers. I mean, Stupar, Robertson, they each forced turnovers, but anytime a defense allows 478 yards when the offense possesses it just 20 minutes, that's not good. That's a lot of yards, but they forced
150 on 2 plays.
Yes.
Keep that in mind, and those were like short catch and run. And that leads me to my next thing because Jarris Byrd took some bad angles on those. Jarris Byrd has been taking a lot of criticism. There he is right there getting jumped over. But you, on the other hand, saw something different yesterday other than those 2 plays.
Yeah, look, Jarris Byrd is by no means playing great, but he made a couple nice plays. He had a tackle for a loss that was by far, I thought, his best tackle since he came to New Orleans. He had 8 tackles the other day. 7 of them were solo, so he's becoming a better tackler, but he's still having trouble, like you said, with those angles, and it's causing the Saints to give up those explosive plays.
One last thing on the Saints. I saw at the end of the game, Drew Brees went over to talk to Colin Kaepernick. Obviously, we were both there, and you can see Kaepernick's expression right here. It's like, what are you touching me for, bro? And then they talked, and you could see that they were coming together a little bit. We were both there when Drew Brees made his comments about, he didn't appreciate what Kaepernick had done. Obviously, we know about Drew Brees' grandfather in World War II. You go to the World War II Museum, you see Drew Brees' stuff everywhere as far as his grandfather, dedicating stuff to him and the rest of the people that served in the war. But what were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, look, I mean, Drew Brees has a right to his opinion, as does Kaepernick, and I think it's good for people when they have different opinions to just talk, because I don't think it's personal between Drew Brees and Colin Kaepernick, and they can disagree, but they can still talk to one another on the football field, congratulate each other on a game, and I think that was the right thing for them to do, and people can take a lesson from that and respect one another, even though they could have wildly differing opinions.
Let's get into the Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama, I have to say, this might be the greatest defense I've ever seen on college level. I really want to think about this hard because I remember some Miami Hurricane defenses that I thought were great. I've seen a couple with Nebraska, Oklahoma, but when I look at this one, and again, I think how many guys were drafted in the first and second round last year, and they come back and they're even better.
It's amazing, and I want to say it's not even the Alabama's front 7; it's like the front 12 because they've got.
It seems like they're playing with 13.
It's amazing the guys are able to run in, and they never get tired, and I think that was the big difference between the LSU and the Alabama defense. In the fourth quarter, it looked like LSU started to get a little winded. But those are clearly the two best defenses in college football. I don't care what anybody says about that team up in the Big Ten. These are, without a doubt, the most talented defense, perhaps, in the history of college football. LSU's defense is every bit as good as Alabama's.
How many plays did Alabama, percentage-wise, get over 1 or 2 yards? Really, like 20%, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, both teams were doing it. So it stinks because all the LSU fans will only say, well, it's another loss to Bama. But listen, the offense wasn't good. But Bama had a lot to do with it. But the defense focused on what they did and moving forward these next 3 games.
I mean, Dave Aranda is a genius. I mean, that guy is a superstar coach. His game plan for stopping Alabama's offense, it was averaging nearly 500 yards per game, 44 points per game, was fantastic. He decided that he was going to take away the edges, really apply a lot of pressure, bring down that safety, bring in a cornerback blitz, and really prevent Alabama from those quick passes. They like the little screens they like so much that allows a Darius Stewart and Ridley to get out there in the open field. They took that away, and it really made it difficult for a freshman quarterback to operate. So I thought it was a brilliant game plan by Aranda. Unfortunately, Alabama began to exploit it in the fourth quarter when they were out wide, right up the middle.
Which is interesting. I spent a lot of time as an agent at Wisconsin. Now, you may not know this, but I went 60 times. So I went to a lot of hoop games, but I also went to about 20 football games over a 5-year stretch. So I feel like I know this program, and I got some close friends. And they said when Aranda came to LSU, they said, you just got the best defensive coordinator in football. You had a genius coming. They were really upset that he left. But I thought the intriguing matchup was Lane Kiffin. You saw the picture, who might be a candidate for the LSU job as well. And then Dave Aranda. And, Aranda obviously may have won this battle, but Kiffin got him in the end.
Yeah, he did. And look, I thought Aranda for 3 quarters got the best of him, got the best of Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting to me is in this whole coaching search talk at LSU, where does Dave Aranda fit into that? Because
I was thinking about that.
Because this guy, I mean, you don't want to lose Dave Aranda. Is he ready to be a head coach? How does he recruit? Those are the questions I still have about him and really don't have answers to. And he's never been a head coach. So can you keep him around? That has to be a top priority for
anybody. It's a big can,
anybody.
isn't it? Because, I mean, you have to think teams are going to come hunting if they go for another direction or they keep Coach O, which leads us to the elephant in the room. Coach O. He is beloved down here, and obviously, he had the team fired up. Even going to this game, you could see the emotion. Where does he stand with, you think, we know the fans love him, but where do you think he stands with the people that matter at LSU making the decisions?
Let me start with this. I think he is a phenomenal guy. He's a great coach. But I think the moment was too big for him. It just seemed like he got out-coached in the end. There were some mistakes.
Nick Saban we're talking about. I mean, this is
right.
Nick Saban.
You're right.
He's probably the greatest coach in college football history, so a lot of people are going to get out-coached by him.
Absolutely, but it just seemed like the pressure got to him a little bit. You saw it, I think, in the play when LSU delay of game. Nick Saban's there on the sideline calling timeouts.
Listen, can I say something real quick? I watched this again last night till 3 a.m. because I wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. And you're right. That is the thing that stuck out to me the most. LSU got it to the 35. It was 3rd and long and maybe 8 or so or whatever. Starting 3, and then they ended up getting 3rd and 8, and they couldn't do it. And then right after that, Bama has the 3rd and 14, and he calls it right at the buzzer. It looks like it's going to run out, and I'm like, there's the difference right there in the ball game.
And you know what? And Orgeron he was doing some screaming and yelling at Danny Etling, and I think that's the big difference. You watch it the way Saban has been able to develop his quarterbacks, and let's say it, he's gotten those quarterbacks at Alabama to overachieve. All of those guys, every one of them for years now, they've won with average quarterbacks at best, I'd say. This kid Jalen Hurts, I think, is pretty special, but Saban has been able to develop quarterbacks. LSU has not. I thought it was a mistake to be in Etling's face the way he was, yelling at him.
Right.
You never see Saban do that. You never see him do that to his quarterbacks.
I've seen him yell.
Yeah, but not really at the quarterbacks. He'll yell at Lane Kiffin,
Right.
and I think you got to keep those guys calm.
But the quarterback is a fragile position.
And so I thought that is just a way that he was kind of a little out of his element right there, and I thought the moment got to him just a little bit, and I think that's the difference between a coach that is a superstar, somebody that can take a program to new heights, and somebody that maybe is maybe an Indian and not a Chief.
All right. I know you do high school games on the weekend. You do it all, man. High school, college, and pro. But I want to save a high school for my next guest, Rick Gaille. So I want to talk some Pelicans with you. It's 0-7. Last year they started 1-11. Hey, if you count the preseason, they lost their last 5 games. They've lost their last 12 times they've stepped foot on the court. The bright side of this, they had the leads against Golden State late in the third. This is going to be the best team on the planet when they get it all together. And then they lost 2 overtime games where Anthony Davis had a chance to win at the end of regulation. He missed the jumper. And then against the Suns, the very next game, they were up the whole game, and then Booker hits the shot. Well, there's the overtime. That's T.J. Warren going in for the dunk. Right before that, Booker hits a sideline jumper to put the game into overtime. There it is right there. So the other teams are making the plays when they matter, and the Pelicans aren't. Where does this team stand with you?
They're in big trouble. I mean, look, they're 0-7.
He's not kidding.
They're 0-7. They have a roster of
what about Drew
guys
Holiday and Tyreek Evans? They're not going to save the day. They're not the cavalry.
No, the cavalry's not coming to ride in. Drew Holiday's not going to save the day. I mean, Frazier's played very well.
He has.
So, I mean,
he has. You're right.
Look, so you'll have a little bit more depth at the point guard position, but I mean, if you're banking this team's future on Drew Holiday coming back, or Quincy Pondexter being healthy, or Tyreek Evans,
come on, what about Q-Pond?
I mean, look, I like all of those guys, but they're all role players.
Right.
You have
Drew's not a role player, but
but you have one of the best players in all of basketball, a guy that is a franchise player, and he's got nobody. He's got a bunch of role players he's playing with, the guys that on any other team would be seventh man on back.
I have a montage of AD disgruntled pictures because I guess he's got a lot of reason to feel a little bit disgruntled. If you're Anthony Davis and you have 3 more years after this one that you are set in to stay in New Orleans, what are you thinking?
You're thinking, how fast can I get the hell out of here? I mean, and that's just the reality.
Now you're making me cry because I'm a big basketball fan.
I would love AD to bring a championship to this city, but the reality is he's got to be looking around at teams like Golden State and what they're going to do and thinking, man, I'm one of the best players in the league. I got to go somewhere to play with somebody, because what the Pelicans
Kevin Durant did right here.
Absolutely. High five and Kerr. I mean, you got 2 MVPs right there.
That's good producing when you just said that the guy brings that shot in.
I mean, they have done an absolutely horrific job of surrounding Anthony Davis with talent, and they need to.
Can I say something on that? Okay, I can see, I'm not defending Del Demps. He was on our show a few weeks ago, but I can see why they made a lot of the deals in the past. They wanted to win now. They got Drew Holiday. They gave up a couple ones, which didn't amount to anything, by the way. That Nerlens Noel hadn't panned out either. But this year, the year that they finally get cap space, well, that's when everybody else got a ton extra because they moved the salary cap up so high that the Pelicans didn't have the advantage that they thought they were going to have. And after a 30-52 season, when they thought they were going to be one of the few teams with cap space, everybody had it. So can't you attribute a little bit of this horrific putting players around in a bad light? Because there's not a lot of chances for people to come when you can give equal money and another team can match that when you haven't been playing well. So it's been a little circumstantial for me. So that's my y'all will call it excuse making. I'm calling it reasons.
I feel like that with Anthony Davis and him being locked up for the next few years, they could have gone out and landed a big name player.
You think so?
I think so.
But they didn't have any money the year that they were 45-37. You see, it's a little easier when you have that good year. You say, let's build. They had zero money to spend, and then when they got it this year, they come off a 30-52 season.
They're paying guys they had to overpay for marginal guys,
right?
And that's what happened. They sat back and they waited to see how it
because of the market we're in. I'm
yeah,
just telling you.
Look, I would have much preferred them going out and paid top dollar for somebody that they could have paired with Anthony Davis over the next few years.
But do you think that they could have done it? That's my point. It's like I don't think that these guys were knocking the door down to come to New Orleans. I think
no, because of the environment they've created here. And look, they see what the Pelicans front office has done. These players are not dumb. They've watched the teams that have been built around Anthony Davis, and they're saying to themselves, look, even if you get me here, who else is going to be there? They've just done such a poor job over the last number of years that the players look at it like, why would I go there? Anthony Davis is going to leave the first chance he gets anyway.
My man, that's why I love you. You say it like it is. And you don't candy coat it. And my next guest doesn't either, Rick Gaille. But here, this is a great restaurant.
I love it. I love
Legacy
Legacy
familiar.
Kitchen.
Yeah, you're right. Enjoy. Always love having you.
Thank you, man.
And I
love
finally
being
didn't
here.
have to rush you off.
Nah,
normally
that was
it's
fun.
like 14 minutes tops, and I got to go 25 with you.
I think it was the time, man. Just loosen up,
loosen
just
it
chill
up,
out
baby.
a little bit. Yeah.
Well, Lyons Yellin, check him out. WWL television these days, and you can catch him. He's always covering games. He's going to be covering some playoffs this weekend in high school, and then he's going to be getting on to the college and pro scenes as well. And check him and Doug Mouton, Leslie Spoon. They do a fantastic job at WLAE-TV. Hey, coming up next, another guy that's been around the sports scene a lot longer than both the Lions and I. And, man, he knows his stuff. He breaks it down as well as anybody. His name is Rick Gaille, and we're going to do this again. We're going to talk Saints. We're going to talk LSU. But we're also going to get into high school playoffs. They're here, and I cannot wait. Come right back, right here on Primetime Sports.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Betts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Chapatulas and Girard.
I burned for health.
For never being big again.
I burned for my family.
For my 10th high school reunion.
For swimsuit season.
I burned for myself. Orange Theory Fitness. Keep burning.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Oh, welcome back, Crescent City. There's E.T. Towns again from the Dirty Dozen Brass Band. Can't wait to hear more of his stuff. Check him out when you ever see them around town. They are always playing. He's been with them for 36 years. Hey, I want to thank Lyons Yellin and my next guest right here, Rick Gaille. He is with SportsNOLA.com. He is on the starting lineup, a senior writer with those guys. Obviously, he and Ken Trahan are good friends. He also does Ken Trahan's original prep report. That's from 6 o'clock to 11 each and every Friday night on the radio. You can check your local listings. It's all over the place. They do a great job covering the prep scene. But he's also got a great show Wednesdays at 6 on WHNO, and I think it's the Prep Insider Report. You can tell us more about that. But here he is, Rick Gaille. Hey. Welcome back to the show.
It's my pleasure, for sure.
I've been wanting to get you back. Here's the thing. As you've seen the show, we usually have a current or former sports star around town or some kind of link to town, maybe a Will Clark or a golfer Kelly Gibson, certainly a lot of great athletes and coaches. today, you were a great athlete in your own right. Great golfer, great football player. You coached for years and years, still do some, I believe, but you're also in the media and you know your stuff. That's why I wanted to get a print media guy, and now Lyons used to be print, and he is now in the, obviously, the television aspect of it. But you two, I really enjoy talking to you more than anything, so that's why I want to get you. So let's waste no more time.
Absolutely.
You
Let's
ready
get right
this?
to it.
All right.
Let's tee it up.
The Saints. Okay, the Saints started 0-3. And last year, when you came on my radio show back when I was with ESPN and then some on the TV, you always bring an insight that I don't think of. And that's wonderful. So give me some insight on this team that I should know.
The Saints are 4-4, and they prove that the NFL is 4-4 overall. The NFL this year is as mediocre as I've ever seen, team-wise.
Right.
The best players in the world playing at high levels, but the team play leaves a lot to be desired. That has a lot to do with the TV ratings being down as well.
Wow, okay.
And some other factors. When you look at the very first game this year, the Saints playing the Oakland Raiders, where they have the Raiders beat except for a fictitious pass interference call.
Terrible call.
The 2-point play would never have come into play except for that fictitious call. And now the Raiders are the third-rated team in the league.
Isn't that crazy? 7-2.
Shows you how close the competition is, but it's because the team play especially is mediocre. So as the Saints have gotten more fundamental in what they're doing, the more successful they've been. Offensive line playing significantly better. I mean, who knew back in the day, earlier in the season, that Andres Pete had to be on the left side to be effective? Not only at left guard, but this past game played more than half the game at left tackle.
Yeah.
When Terran Armstead went out and Calamente went in and played at a significant level over there on the left side. As Jari Evans is getting more and more into shape, game shape now, he and Streif doing a great job. Max Unger is just excellent. The Saints have gotten much more fundamental in what they're doing, and that has led to their recent success.
Well, the resurgence is interesting. You bring up a point that I wasn't thinking about before, which you always do, but I'm going to bring it into context here. You talked about that Raiders game, which, let's be honest, I'm not being a homer here. The Saints outplayed them the entire game. They were up 2 touchdowns late in the third. But then the follow-up the next week, they completely outplay the New York Giants. They get beat by a blocked field goal for a touchdown.
Right.
How often does this happen in the NFL? You take those 2 games alone, and you know, they had another close one too. Just those 2, though. They're 6-2. Now they're being talked about like the Raiders are being talked about. By the way, the Saints have an even better offense than the Raiders that everybody keeps raving about. Theirs is number 1. But that's how close this is in this game called the National Football League.
That's absolutely right. And all of those instances you're talking about really came down to fundamental execution. Getting a field goal blocked, and I had great detail at the New Orleans Quarterback Club on why that field goal got blocked. Fundamental execution in the protection and also in the place kick. Kansas City, they've got the Chiefs beaten until the fumble. And that was fundamental execution. And I also have a video at sportsnola.com about how Mark Ingram's fundamental way of carrying the football is flawed. It's been flawed all along. From the very first preseason game to now, you see some fundamental errors that led to that particular fumble. And it also showed how professional players play when they're on edge, because you know that Mark Ingram had to be embarrassed being demoted.
Oh, my goodness.
And Hightower going in and excelling, but he bounced back and he ran angry. Mark Ingram plays his best when he runs angry, and he's now on edge. That's part of coaching. You want the players to be confident, but not comfortable in what they're doing.
Since we're on Ingram, this guy has had a Dow Jones career. I'm talking about he was at the zenith at Alabama, national champion. Heisman Trophy winner, the very first Alabama's ever had in their storied history. A late first-round pick, but his first 2.5 years in New Orleans were god-awful. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then they came on, and we remember at the end of 13, he started playing very well. 14, he got the new contract after that. Where does Mark Ingram stand with you with this franchise?
It has to do with edge. And I think it's taken the coaching staff a while to figure that out, all the years that he's been there, because he's such a good teammate, such a good person, great practice player, has all the qualities of a great player, but he plays much better when he's angry,
right.
I call it.
Right.
And I think that now they've discovered that. In fact, Sean Payton is a better coach when Sean Payton's angry,
sure.
when he's on edge and sarcastic, and he keeps everybody else on the edge of their seat. He's the burr under the players' saddle, so to speak, and the whole organization plays better when they're like that.
You give me natural segues to talk, because when you just said Sean Payton, it made me think of something. This past game on Sunday, you had two coaches who were considered at one time the very best at what they did offensively, right. Genius, as some would say. They've kind of lost their luster, particularly now Chip Kelly. But what do you think about Sean Payton and where he's at in his career? Because he certainly had a few years there after Bountygate. He had that one good year playoff, but his career was kind of on the ropes here in New Orleans.
He's another one that cannot be comfortable. He always has to be an irritant, so to speak, and he's got to have things irritate him a bit to be on edge. When he gets mellowed out, when he gets collegial, I call it, he is much less effective than when he is on edge and he puts everybody else on edge. Now, that's hard on you internally to be that way all the time.
Nick Saban's like that all the time.
Oh, exactly.
And look what and it's worked for him.
I mean, I always stated that when I coached from August the 1st to the second week in December, I was in a constant state of angry for me to be able to be effective, so I can identify with that. In world-class competition, you've got to be on edge. You can't be comfortable because you're either going up or going down. And when you feel comfortable, it means you're going down.
Have there been any just always nice guys that win? I mean, I'm trying to think. Was Paul Brown even had an edge back with the Browns and Bengals? Is there anybody that's just always happy and won the games as well?
No. No.
I can't think off the top of my head.
Even though externally, and the external look and what you really are two entirely different things. Marv Levy, for example, gave you that collegiate look. Bill Walsh really gave you the collegiate type of look, but they had an edge to them that whatever they had to do to get to you, they would find a way to get to you as well.
And you picked two guys that are considered some of the nicest ever to coach in the NFL.
Yeah, you could be a nice guy and be on edge, but you just got to be a burr under your own saddle sometimes.
Let's talk about the modern marvel that is Drew Brees. I didn't get into a whole lot of this with Lyons, Yellin, because we were talking about a variety of topics, but this guy is 37, almost 38. Let's be honest, man. I mean, is this even real what we're seeing here? Because he is still at the top of his game.
Incredible. When you look at Tom Brady at 39 and Drew Brees at 37, you're finding out what world-class training can do now and how it can lengthen your career and how it's unfortunate a lot of great players way back in the day didn't have the type of training that these guys do all year long to be able to promote their career. I mean, 10, 11 years used to be a long time, and now careers are lengthened because of the world-class training that they put themselves through. And they can adjust to their changes in physical abilities, that your arm may not be quite as strong, but you sharpen your decision-making, your footwork gets better, the way that you use your body to be able to project the ball down the field, the quickness that you get the ball out, all has something to do with being able to compensate because your mind and your body have got to be in sync. It's like playing golf. If I went out and played golf right now, I could be 150 yards from the green and think, well, okay, back in the day, that was an 8-iron. Okay, well, I can hit an 8-iron now, and I don't make it to the bunkers in front of the green anymore. My mind hasn't adjusted to my physical capabilities, but his certainly has.
Well, the thing that struck me the most, which you just said, is the quickness getting the ball out, because that means you get hit a whole lot less, and Drew Brees has perfected that. Hey, Dan Marino had that down. A lot of the greats knew how to get the ball out before they got hit, therefore protecting their body. Right. Hey, we've seen this before with the Saints. We've seen it every time they go 0-4, 0-3, 0-2, or 1-3. They always come back and tie it up. They did it in 0-7. And then they petered out. They went 0-4, they made 4-4, and they went 7-9. And they've done it a lot recently. We've seen it in the Bountygate year. They were 0-4, they get back to 5-5. They went to the playoffs the next year, but the following year, Peyton, they start out poorly again, 0-2, and then they end up going to 4-4, and then they petered out 7-9. Right. Last year, same thing. 1-3, and then they go 4-4, and then what is different about this team, or is it going to be the same old 7-9?
It's a matter of, once again, we're getting back to edge. Can you keep your edge going forward? Can you increase that edge? Can you get healthier as they're starting to get healthier during this time of year? You got Sheldon Rankins back last week. Delvin Breaux, you got him back. Teron Armstead's got to be there.
Has to be there.
So that offensive line can maintain.
And Rankins right there you see him.
Yeah,
right?
That. So as those guys get healthier, Stephon Anthony, I think, has got to be a contributor a little more going into the future.
Yeah.
But where he fits in, I'm not sure. Even though you go from being the leading rookie tackler in the league to not even playing a defensive snap anymore.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, now Laurinaitis is not even out there, and he still can't get on the field.
Yeah.
Hey, we've talked a lot about the Saints. I don't want to leave LSU, Alabama, because I know you know the college game. I always see you there, too. I'm going to give you the floor on this one because I don't want to ask any pointed questions. LSU, Alabama, you're a former coach, you're a former player. What are your thoughts on this performance?
Obviously, great defensive play on both sides. Alabama played into Dave Aranda's hand during the course of the game because Aranda's defensive structure is made to play against spread attacks. And that's what Alabama is trying to get to. What Aranda's defenses has had historically difficulty with is the power running game. Mm-hmm. And what happened in the fourth quarter? Alabama, in effect, went back to their power running game, kept the ball for a 10-minute drive.
In the 50-yard, 10-minute drive. 50 yards, people, and 10 minutes. That's clock management
that's
right there.
So once again, two great defenses. I think you saw from Danny Etling the emphasis that the LSU staff put on not making mistakes rather than making plays.
Look, Danny Etling, we have a series of shots showing him just getting pounded. Was the moment a little big for him?
I think so. There's a reason that he's still not at Purdue. There's some shortcomings there, and that was brought out. But I also think in the preparation for the week, as a coach, you've got to be able to balance out the ability to make plays with the ability to not make mistakes. If you go into every play thinking, I can't make a mistake, then your decision-making goes down, your eyes come down, you don't take the risks, so to speak, to be able to make plays, whereas really terrific players are always looking at what they have to do to make plays. You can emphasize not making a mistake so much that it limits your ability, along with the stage being really big and Danny Etling not being up to it. But the coaching staff has got to know that as well and be able to compensate for that by taking the pressure off of him.
It's kind of hard to believe if you talk about when the millennium happened in 2000. Since 2000, in the regular season, LSU still has a 9-8 edge on Alabama in games in the regular season. It's kind of hard because that seems like such a distant memory. LSU was 7-1 to start, the 2000, and it's been tough certainly for the last 5 years in 6 games, counting the championship game. But when I saw Etling, I was thinking of Jordan Jefferson. I was thinking of even Jarrett Lee back in 2008 with all the pick sixes against Bama, and I'm thinking of obviously the performances of Anthony Jennings and Brandon Harris. Is Bama just too good to be beaten now? I mean, I'm talking about not just this year, forever.
Oh no, not forever. My goodness.
Well, I mean,
but it certainly can. When you take each game individually and then start piecing them together a bit, you could certainly start to get that feeling. But there's always a way, and you've got to be intelligent enough as a coaching staff, not just the week of the game or the 2 weeks before, because they try to have an open date before Alabama, but in your training all year long to be able to step up to the challenge of the big game. And certainly, when you look at the offensive strategy in this particular game, they never really got Alabama's cleats out of the ground. They never got them running side to side and having to move and adjust to what was going on. It was much more of a direct attack and really didn't put Etling in a very good situation.
It was tough.
I
got to get your opinion before we get into high school. Ed Ogeron, LSU coaching job. Should it be his? What's your opinion?
I have difficulty being objective because I know Babay. and actually coached against him when he was playing at South Lafourche and I was at Chalmette.
Wow.
Our first scrimmage of the year. He and Bobby Hebert played together at South Lafourche.
I know.
And when we scrimmaged him at Chalmette, Bobby Hebert was a defensive back.
Wow.
He wasn't even playing quarter. The next week, Ralph Perry moved him to quarterback, and the rest is history.
Right, exactly.
After that. So I can't be objective, but...
By the way, you can see, I'm looking at the thing, you can see the Cajun Cannon signature
right.
all the way from over here. Bobby Hebert. I think he did well at quarterback.
Yeah, he's done pretty good for a guy from Galliano.
Right.
When you look at Les Miles being fired in the middle of the season, have the big money people fired Les Miles to hire Ed Ogeron. The big money people got rid of Les to try to hire the most renowned coach that they could possibly get. Now, who that's going to be? They're going to go after some big names, but I love Ed Ogeron, and I'm not objective in that.
High school playoffs are here. We love high school football. You're a big part of the scene down here. Ken Trahan, all you guys. I'm so proud of what y'all do, and I'm happy you do it. Some teams that always seem to be there. There's 4 teams that are number 1 locally.
Right.
And teams like John Curtis, I mean, they've been doing this for, seems like 12 decades. Right. Destrehan with Tony Robichaux. You see JT Curtis at Destrehan's phenomenal. Riverside Academy for the last decade plus. They've been getting it done. Carr is in, but there's a new team out there, De La Salle, that has not really had a football history. In fact, I remember when I was in high school, they went 0-10. Right. Well, for the first time in their history, and they've been great in other sports, but football has not been really one of them. They were 10-0 this season. 10-0, and they just beat Lutcher, who won 7 state titles since 1975. They didn't just beat them. They demoralized them 27-3 last week. Is this team for real?
Oh, they certainly are. This has been coming for some time. Ryan Manali has done an excellent job getting things back together on the avenue. They do have a rich history, but it's well back in the day. And when they hired Ryan, it was with the idea that they were going to get good again.
He's great, man.
It's benefited the whole school. Their attendance is up, applications are up, so things are really making great progress at De La Salle. This was entirely predictable, and they are the favorite in their division.
Well, there's the once proud school has had some harder times, and now they're coming back. That's good to see. Hey, Curtis, Riverside, Destrehan, and Carr, can you give me a quick comment on each? I don't have a ton of time.
Sure. Curtis winning the Catholic League in only their second year. In it, they have a bye the first week, and they'll play Rummel, the winner Rummel and Jesuit in week 2. So that's all rematches almost all the way through, especially in the top half of the bracket. Curtis, you're looking at Catholic of Baton Rouge, certainly 2 of the favorites, and Evangel coming out of Shreveport.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with JT Curtis. You were here when he called. He's going to come on the show next week. What a great guy. Listen, they just vacated a few wins, which I still can't stand. But the fact is that he is still one of the greatest coaches of all time in 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. The only coach in the Catholic League that did not graduate from either a Catholic League school or the school he's coaching at. He's the only public school graduate in the Catholic League. He graduated from East Jefferson.
That's right.
He was right
EJ.
All the other coaches were either at the school, they were either alumni of the school or they coached at another.
My cousin was captain of his team. I'll throw him a plug. He lives in Hawaii. Mike Miller of that EJ team, and he was with those two together. Right. Hey, I love you, Rick, man. I really appreciate you. Always glad to see you at Saints games or anywhere down the line when we're doing some Saints training camp or wherever. Yep. But I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, my friend. It's a pleasure being with you. It's good to be anywhere.
Anywhere, right? Rick Gaille, sportsnola.com. You can go online right now and read his great stuff. And obviously check out the Prep Insider Report. That's Wednesdays at 6 also, and he's also does that stuff with Ken Trahan on the radio on Friday night. So I appreciate him and Lyons Yellin. This was an interesting show because I didn't have to really rush through it, but I'm rushing through the close because we're running out of time. Hope you got your election on. You saw his voting sticker. You got 1 hour left. Don't forget the replay. If you're not watching already on the replay, which is this Thursday at 10, if you missed any of it today, check that out then. I have to thank everybody, man. William Hill, he keeps doing it every single week and making me look halfway decent. Appreciate you so very much. Josh Smith, controlling everything else. Nail is back there. Kenny Juno, he got the sound working. He's all doing it. Hey, I want to thank Ray, Roy, everybody else, Jim, Ron and Jim, they're the guys that run this whole thing. Thank you so much. We're going to have a big show for you next week. Come back to Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander.